rat is a rat. You know what you did. Like, if you're not like that, man, just stay away from the streets. Like, be portraying the image.
Right.
From lavish penthouses to the cold reality of jail cells, Lil Durk's life has been turned upside down in just 5 months. Once on top of the rap world, he's now locked up at MDC Los Angeles, facing serious charges that could keep him behind bars for decades. The authorities claim Durk was involved in putting a bounty on a rival's head. If found guilty, he's looking at the possibility of life in prison. No parole, no second chances. This is a drastic fall from grace for the OTF leader. Not long ago, Durk was living the high life. Sprawling multi-million-dollar mansions, luxury cars, private jets, and a career that put him at the peak of the music industry. Now he's waking up to gray walls and a hard bunk instead of ocean views and plush sheets. Durk, whose real name is Derek Banks, was arrested on October 24th and initially held at the Miami Federal Detention Center. But this isn't a run-of-the-mill legal issue. The feds came down hard, charging him in connection with a murder-for-hire plot that ended in bloodshed. They allege he played a key role in orchestrating the August 2022 killing of Louis Pop, a man identified as cousin to rapper Quando Rondo, in what prosecutors claim was a carefully planned hit. The charges are serious: conspiracy, illegal possession of firearms, and orchestrating a murder-for-hire scheme. The government made one thing perfectly clear: Lil Durk wasn't walking away from these charges without a fight. Despite his legal team's efforts, which included offering a massive $3 million bond, the court remained firm. They ruled him too high of a flight risk and denied his bail outright. This crushing decision left Durk with no option but to remain locked up until his trial. On November 13th, Durk was quietly moved to MDC Los Angeles, where he now shares a confined space with some of his closest OTF associates. Among them are Kayvon Coos Grant, DeAndre Dede Wilson, Keith Flacker Jones, and AA Boogie Houston, all facing the same heavy charges. Once street-running cohorts, these men now find themselves in a high-security prison with their futures on the line. Durk might have hoped MDC Los Angeles would be a slight improvement over Miami, but that hope was misplaced. While MDC may lack the imposing iron bars of older penitentiaries, its modern design is no indicator of safety. Built in 1988 to house pretrial detainees, the facility has become a volatile environment, plagued by overcrowding and chronic staffing shortages. Unlike state prisons that separate inmates by security levels, MDC LA throws everyone into one mix. It's a high-stakes melting pot of powerful figures: drug kingpins, violent offenders, high-profile inmates, and gang leaders. The result? A chaotic environment where violence is a daily reality. Tempers flare without warning, arguments spiral into brawls, and in the blink of an eye, a disagreement can erupt into an all-out riot. Celebrity status doesn't count for much behind bars. While Lil Durk might be a rap star to the world, inside those walls, he's just another inmate, another potential target. The dangers don't stop there. Contraband runs rampant at MDC, with guards accused of smuggling in drugs, weapons, and cell phones for the right price. Corruption fuels a thriving underground network, making survival even more precarious for high-profile inmates like Durk. The physical conditions of the prison only add to the misery. Inmates have reported crumbling infrastructure, broken equipment, and constant delays in maintenance. Even basic needs are often ignored for months, leaving the environment both uncomfortable and unpredictable. For someone in Durk's shoes, facing intense scrutiny due to his fame and gang ties, any slip-up could be dangerous. Having his OTF associates locked up with him might seem like a silver lining, but in the high-stakes world of federal prosecutions, trust can evaporate under pressure. The feds are known for turning friends into informants, and with so much on the line, even tight-knit crews can fracture. As the trial date looms closer, the tension inside MDC grows. Talk of plea deals, betrayals, and informants hangs heavy in the air. Everyone is desperate to avoid being the last one standing, and when federal sentencing reductions come into play, the temptation to cooperate can be overwhelming. Direct communication between Durk and his co-defendants is shrouded in uncertainty. In federal lockup, it's standard practice to separate co-conspirators, preventing them from aligning their stories or influencing testimonies. If the authorities suspect any attempt at witness tampering, the consequences could be even more severe for Durk. Adding to his troubles, Durk has already been flagged by prison officials for rule breaking. Court filings reveal that he's been caught making unauthorized three-way calls, a direct violation of MDC regulations. Prosecutors quickly seized on this, painting it as proof that he's unable to follow even the most basic jailhouse rules. Their argument: if he can't abide by prison guidelines, how could he be trusted to respect the law if released? This infraction further solidified the denial of his bail. But the struggles aren't just physical or legal, they're deeply psychological. Sitting in a cell, cut off from the outside world, with your future hanging in the balance, can take a heavy toll. For someone who has built a career on resilience and survival, this is the ultimate test. While the prison does provide basic mental health services, they're limited at best. Crisis intervention is available, and therapy is technically offered, but one-on-one sessions are rare and group sessions aren't frequent. Most of the time, inmates are left to grapple with their thoughts in isolation. For Durk, the uncertainty, isolation, and unrelenting scrutiny are constant challenges to endure. Psychological warfare inside these walls is relentless, capable of wearing down even the most resilient. Lil Durk's main escape comes through recreational activities. MDC LA offers inmates a chance to shoot hoops, play ping pong or pool, and even enroll in educational programs like earning a GED. But in a place where violence can ignite at any moment, even something as simple as stepping onto the basketball court feels risky. Yet despite the hostile environment, Durk appears to be holding it together. At least, that's the image he projects to the outside world. In a leaked phone call from November 15th, he sounded upbeat, telling a friend he was keeping his spirits high and focusing on reuniting with his family. "Just got off the phone with my brother," read an Instagram caption. "He's in good spirits, staying positive and fighting to get back home to his kids and family. We're not glorifying negativity. We're men of honor and code." But how much of that is genuine optimism, and how much is just a brave face? Prison changes even the strongest. The looming uncertainty of trial, the pressure of a life-altering sentence, and the paranoia over who might turn against you all take their toll. Durk may sound calm and confident on the phone, but behind closed doors, he's battling a far greater conflict than he's ever faced. With the severity of his charges, he knows his time behind bars might not just be temporary, it could become permanent. Lil Durk's legal situation has spiraled from bad to worse. What began as a single murder-for-hire charge has now snowballed into a full-scale RICO case. The stakes couldn't be higher. If convicted, Durk and his OTF associates face life in prison, no parole, no second chances. The feds seem determined not just to imprison him, but to obliterate his entire operation. A superseding indictment, unsealed in November 2024, lays out a sweeping narrative of conspiracy, violence, and years of retaliatory bloodshed. The government isn't framing this as a one-off crime. They're painting Durk as the architect of a well-organized criminal empire, with OTF operating as more than just a record label. To the authorities, OTF is a tightly run gang engaged in murders, assaults, and racketeering. The RICO Act, a tool once reserved for dismantling the mafia, has increasingly been used against rap crews and street gangs. Now it's being wielded against Lil Durk, who prosecutors accuse of using his power, influence, and financial resources to orchestrate violence, put out bounties, and enforce OTF's control over the streets. They claim this all traces back to the murder of King Von in 2020, a turning point in drill music's turbulent history. Von's death triggered a deadly chain reaction of revenge, suspicion, and violence. Prosecutors allege that after Von was killed in Atlanta, Durk placed a bounty on the perpetrators. This reportedly led to the August 2022 assault on Quando Rondo's crew in Los Angeles. The feds say Durk personally directed the hit, sending associates across state lines to track and eliminate a rival. They claim to have solid evidence: surveillance footage, intercepted phone calls, text messages, and even song lyrics they interpret as outright confessions. This case is built on more than just circumstantial evidence. The authorities have amassed months of investigative material, including witness testimony and information from inside sources. Lil Durk is far from alone in this legal battle. Several of his close OTF associates face equally serious charges. Among them is Kayvon London Grant, aka Cousin Ivani, who's accused of helping organize the hit by handling logistics and securing weapons. DeAndre Dontrell Wilson, known as Dee, allegedly traveled with the crew to Los Angeles for the attack. Keith Jones, aka Flocka, is suspected of being one of the gunmen involved in the shooting itself. David Brian Lindsay, aka Brown, is implicated in the planning, while A.A. Boogie Houston is accused of driving the getaway car and assisting in covering up evidence. The indictment lists over 25 distinct overt acts that the government claims reveal a highly organized effort. These acts range from purchasing plane tickets with OTF credit cards to securing automatic weapons and using encrypted messages to coordinate movements. Prosecutors argue that every step was calculated, premeditated, and deliberate. It gets even worse. Beyond prison time, the feds are seeking criminal forfeiture. If convicted, Durk and his co-defendants stand to lose more than their freedom. They could forfeit homes, luxury cars, jewelry, and earnings from music tied to these crimes. The stakes are enormous, with both their liberty and their fortunes on the line. Modern investigative tools have also shifted the game. The FBI reportedly intercepted multiple phone calls among Durk and his crew. Prosecutors claim these coded conversations point directly to a murder-for-hire scheme. One of the most damning pieces of evidence is a call in which Durk allegedly greenlit a target. They also cite his lyrics, which they argue are veiled confessions. This strategy isn't new. Similar approaches have been used in the RICO cases against artists like YNW Melly and Young Thug. The prosecution is painting a picture not only of intent, but of overt acknowledgement, turning song lyrics and phone taps into a powerful legal weapon. The feds pulled no punches in gathering evidence. Surveillance footage traced Lil Durk's crew before and after the shooting. Financial records highlighted payments suspiciously timed around the hit. And most notably, testimony from confidential informants suggested that someone inside OTF may have flipped. Initially, attention turned to an OTF member named Jam. Jam's reputation as a loyal street soldier was built on his decade-long stint in prison for an attempted murder charge. But after his release in 2022, whispers began to circulate that he had secretly started cooperating with federal agents. The talk was that Jam had worn a wire, providing key intel on OTF's activities and linking Durk directly to a murder-for-hire plot aimed at rapper Rondo. Chicago rapper King Yeller stoked these rumors, alleging that Jam not only provided evidence against Durk, but also tied him to the murder of Lou Pop, Rondo's cousin. This killing, which was reportedly carried out as retaliation for King Von's death, became a central element in the federal case. Further fueling the speculation, DJ Academics and Chicago-based reporter Trench's News released a video shedding light on Jam's possible motivations. According to Trench's News, a pivotal moment may have pushed Jam to cooperate. Jam's baby mama reportedly reached out to Durk for legal help, but Durk allegedly brushed her off. This perceived slight apparently enraged Jam. "You're not supposed to brush off my call when I need something," he reportedly fumed. Trench's News doubled down, saying, "That's facts." The alleged snub may have sparked Jam's decision to turn against his longtime crew. Even figures outside of the case began to weigh in. Wack 100, a prominent voice in hip-hop circles, reflected on Jam's surprising shift. He described Jam as a figure who once embodied street loyalty, someone who served his time in silence and returned to the streets with respect. But now, as rumors of cooperation swirled, Jam's loyalty appeared to be in question. He did 12 years, got out, and went on record claiming he stayed solid. No blemishes on his name, no cooperation, nothing. He even received a car and $50,000, emphasizing he wasn't a rat despite facing a gun charge, but eventually something shifted. Wack 100 recalled how OTF's Jam, who had long been seen as a pillar of street loyalty, ultimately flipped. In December 2024, though, Jam pushed back against the accusations. Taking to social media, Jam wrote a lengthy post denying the claims. "When the discovery come out, you're going to see I'm not how the feds got onto us or built their case. I'm gonna let the paperwork come out, 'cause it's gone tell it all," he declared. Still, the prosecution is piecing together a case that portrays Lil Durk as far more than just an artist rhyming about street life. They're claiming he lived it, directing crimes from the shadows. Durk's situation isn't just about one man. It reflects the broader struggle between the hip-hop world and the justice system. Rappers like Young Thug, Bobby Shmurda, and now Lil Durk have found themselves at the center of high-profile legal battles, but what makes Durk's case even more dire is the involvement of the federal government. When the feds are involved, the odds of walking free drop dramatically. If convicted, it could mean the end of one of the most powerful empires in modern rap. Everything, his music, his influence, his career, is on the line. Fans continue to hold out hope, flooding social media with hash-free Durk posts. But the reality is sobering. The Chicago rapper who once seemed untouchable now faces the very real possibility of life behind bars. And here's the chilling part. The trial hasn't even begun. The full force of the federal government is bearing down, and when they're after you, they don't stop until they win. As the trial drags on and both sides build their cases, the future for Lil Durk looks bleaker by the day. Time is running out. For Durk, this extended delay means more time behind bars, more uncertainty, and an ever-increasing tension about how this will all play out. His murder-for-hire trial, initially set for January 7, 2025, has been postponed to October 14, 2025. This shift only underscores how complex and high-stakes the case has become. With 230 GB of digital evidence, over 20,000 pages of documents, and countless hours of surveillance footage and witness statements, the government is leaving no stone unturned. Their strategy is clear: bring every resource to bear against one of hip-hop's most prominent figures. But the question remains, does Durk stand a real chance, or is this just delaying the inevitable? Federal prosecutors have labeled this case as one of the most significant hip-hop-related criminal cases in years. The first superseding indictment casts Durk as a ringleader, a supposed criminal mastermind who ordered hits, financed violent operations, and used the OTF label as a cover for organized crime. However, not everyone agrees that the government's case is airtight. Some legal experts and fans suggest that the case may not be as strong as it appears. One major issue is that much of the evidence is circumstantial. For example, the OTF credit cards allegedly used to book flights, rental cars, and supplies for the alleged hitmen. Prosecutors argue this links Durk directly to the crime, but his defense team can counter that others had access to those cards. Just because an OTF card was used doesn't necessarily mean Durk was directly involved. Another key piece of evidence is a supposed message from Durk that reads, "Don't book no flights or anything associated with my name." Prosecutors claim this shows Durk's awareness of the plot, but his defense can argue the opposite, that the message proves he was distancing himself from any criminal activity. The prosecution has pointed to surveillance footage showing OTF members meeting after the murder to discuss payments and music deals as evidence that Durk financed the hit. However, without Durk physically present at those meetings, proving he directly orchestrated the attack becomes more challenging. This lack of a clear smoking gun, a direct order from Durk, a confession, or a key insider flipping, has led some fans and legal experts to doubt the strength of the case. While the government's case is substantial, it hasn't convinced everyone. A growing contingent of fans believes the evidence against Durk isn't strong enough to secure a conviction. One Reddit user boldly claimed, "Mark my word, Durk will walk." His co-defendants are in a lot more trouble, even if one ratted, because he almost certainly has a record, and defense attorneys will shred him on cross-examination. Other supporters have echoed this skepticism, pointing out that there's no direct link between Durk and the murder itself. Unless prosecutors have a hidden trump card that proves he was the mastermind, it may be difficult to convince a jury. The use of OTF credit cards to fund certain activities isn't conclusive, according to many fans. They argue that multiple members of Durk's team had access to these resources, and simply booking a flight or renting a car doesn't prove Durk's personal involvement. Durk's legal team can also highlight his efforts to rehabilitate his image. Over the past few years, he's engaged in charitable acts, embraced Islam, and released more uplifting music like All My Life. His attorneys are likely to argue that these actions reflect a shift toward a positive, law-abiding lifestyle, casting doubt on the prosecution's portrayal of him as a criminal mastermind. Although the prosecutors have built a mountain of circumstantial evidence, including financial records, surveillance footage, and phone intercepts, they still face the challenge of directly linking Lil Durk to the alleged murder-for-hire plot. With no clear confession or a single undeniable piece of evidence tying him to ordering the hit, the defense has plenty of room to poke holes in the government's narrative. Durk's lawyers are expected to argue that his connection to OTF credit cards or shared resources doesn't prove personal involvement, only that he's part of a larger organization. This defense strategy becomes even more compelling when weighed against Durk's recent public image overhaul. Since his arrest, he's portrayed himself as a figure of resilience and redemption. His legal team may emphasize his philanthropic efforts, spiritual growth, and positive music messaging as evidence that he's been distancing himself from the street lifestyle that the prosecution accuses him of leading. By presenting Durk as someone on a path to reform, the defense hopes to counter the government's portrayal of him as a puppet master behind violent crimes. The trial's outcome hinges on whether the jury sees the prosecution's case as a tightly woven narrative or a series of circumstantial threads. If Durk's team can create doubt, pointing to the lack of concrete proof, the multiple people with access to resources, and his cleanup efforts, they might sway the jury toward acquittal. But if the government reveals a smoking gun during trial, Durk's chances of walking free could quickly evaporate. With both sides preparing their final strategies, the next phase of this legal battle is bound to be intense. The stakes couldn't be higher as the trial date approaches. The federal prosecutors are expected to lean heavily on their substantial collection of digital evidence, including intercepted messages and financial transactions. They'll attempt to paint a picture of a tightly organized network where Lil Durk, as the leader of OTF, called the shots from behind the scenes. However, the defense is poised to counter that narrative. By highlighting the lack of direct evidence, no smoking gun, or unambiguous orders, they'll argue that the government's case is built on conjecture and association. The defense team may also underscore that Durk's focus has shifted in recent years, pointing to his philanthropic endeavors, his more positive lyrical themes, and his outward attempts at community engagement as proof that he's moving away from criminal activity. This clash of perspectives will ultimately be decided in court. If the prosecution can present a convincing timeline, connect the dots in a way that leaves no doubt, and perhaps reveal evidence that hasn't yet been disclosed, they could secure a conviction. On the other hand, if the defense can instill reasonable doubt, showing that multiple people had access to OTF resources and that Durk's supposed involvement is anything but clear-cut, there's a chance the jury could see things differently. The trial, now slated for October, will test both sides' abilities to deliver a compelling story. For Durk, it represents the fight of his life, with his freedom and career hanging in the balance. For the prosecution, it's a high-profile opportunity to show the full force of federal justice. Every piece of evidence, every witness, and every argument will matter as both teams prepare for what promises to be one of the most closely watched hip-hop-related legal battles in recent history. One fan offered a deeper analysis of the situation, estimating that Durk has roughly a 60% to 80% chance of walking free. They argued that the key piece of evidence, the message about avoiding flights under his name, could be interpreted differently. The defense might claim that Durk was telling his associates, "Whatever you're doing, I don't want any part of it." If successful, this interpretation could shift the narrative, portraying Durk as distancing himself from wrongdoing rather than orchestrating it. Not everyone shares this optimism, though. Some fans point out the federal government's track record. The feds rarely bring cases they don't feel confident in winning. Their resources, their evidence, and their ability to turn co-defendants into witnesses could all work against Durk. The possibility of a co-defendant flipping is a looming threat. Currently, 5 other OTF members are facing similar charges. Each of them faces a difficult choice: fight the case and risk a life sentence, or take a plea deal and potentially testify against Durk. DeAndre "D.D." Wilson's recent request for a pre-plea sentence report hints that he may be considering cooperation. If Wilson or another co-defendant turns, it could strengthen the government's case and increase the likelihood of a conviction. Durk's legal team is undoubtedly monitoring these developments closely. If even one co-defendant decides to testify, it could shift the trial's direction entirely. Right now, there are 4 possible outcomes: a not guilty verdict, which would be the best-case scenario for Durk; A conviction based on the current evidence, a plea deal for reduced charges, or the introduction of a cooperating witness, which could make the government's case nearly insurmountable. Durk's future hinges on how these scenarios play out in the coming months. While it's not entirely out of the question for federal defendants to beat all charges, it's undeniably rare. If Lil Durk and his legal team determine the odds are stacked against them at trial, they may explore a plea deal to mitigate the damage. However, in a murder-for-hire case, even a plea deal could result in a hefty 20-plus-year sentence. The stakes are high, and every move must be carefully calculated. Should the worst-case scenario unfold, a conviction, Durk faces a mandatory life sentence with no parole or early release. A guilty verdict on the murder-for-hire charge would mean the end of his freedom, possibly forever. Compounding this risk is the ever-present danger that one of Durk's co-defendants could flip. If even one member of OTF cooperates with federal prosecutors and takes the stand, it could seal Durk's fate. Insider testimony has historically been a trump card for the government, and in this case, it would make Durk's chances of walking free nearly non-existent. If Durk does manage to win this case, it would be a monumental moment for hip-hop. Such a victory would challenge the perception that federal prosecutors always prevail, while proving that even high-profile figures can fight back and win. But if he loses, it would send a chilling message to the industry. The feds aren't just after small-time players. They're targeting rap's biggest stars as though they were crime bosses. Despite the uncertainty surrounding his legal battle, Lil Durk refuses to let his career falter. He continues to make moves from behind bars. His music still commands attention, and his name sparks conversations throughout the hip-hop world. Before his arrest, Durk was riding high, dropping hit singles, teasing collaborations, and building anticipation for a landmark 2024 release. His album, Deep Thoughts, originally set for October 18th, was poised to cement his place at the top of the game. The original release date of Deep Thoughts, a highly anticipated moment for Lil Durk's fans, was supposed to be a turning point for 2024. But everything changed when he was arrested. At first, the album's release was quietly pushed back to November 22nd, something sharp-eyed fans noticed when Apple Music updated the listing. While frustrating, they clung to the hope that the legal troubles wouldn't completely halt Durk's music. As the case against him grew more complex, so did the delays. By the time the release date was moved again to March 2025, the fan base's frustration was palpable. Deep Thoughts had been teased and hyped for nearly 2 years, with singles like Turn Up a Notch, Monitoring Me, and Late Checkout, keeping the streets buzzing. The project was expected to showcase Durk at his most introspective, exploring his rise to stardom, the pain of his losses, and the struggles that come with success. Then came a curveball. A fake tracklist leaked on October 1st, sparking debates and speculation. The rumored features included surprising names like Kai Cenat, Morgan Wallen, and Sabrina Carpenter. This led to an outcry from fans worried that Durk might abandon his drill roots. However, Durk quickly shut down the speculation, confirming that the leaked tracklist was false. Still, the official lineup remained a closely guarded secret. Among the most eagerly anticipated songs is Discontinuing Walk Hard, rumored to be a collaboration with Drake. DJ Academics and Aiden Ross have both teased snippets, fueling anticipation. Academics even played what appeared to be a preview of the music video, only for fans to later speculate that Drake might have been removed from the track. Despite the uncertainty, the mere mention of this collaboration has kept fans' hopes alive for what Deep Thoughts will deliver when it finally drops. After it was confirmed that the leaked tracklist was fake, hope for the Drake feature surged again. But with Lil Durk still behind bars and Deep Thoughts indefinitely delayed, fans can't help but wonder if the project will ever see the light of day. Despite the uncertainty surrounding his case, Durk hasn't been fighting this battle alone. His family has stood firmly in his corner, attending court hearings, making public statements, and demonstrating unwavering support. One of the most visible figures at his side is his longtime girlfriend, India Royale. She was spotted outside the courthouse after his arrest, a moment that quickly made the rounds on social media. Photos of India standing resolutely for updates triggered mixed reactions. Many fans commended her loyalty, seeing it as a powerful symbol of their bond. Some called it a testament to their enduring love, while others argued that such support should be the norm in any committed relationship. "Why are we acting like this is something special? Every couple should act like this," wrote one user on X, formerly known as Twitter. Skeptics questioned whether her support would hold up in the long run, asking, "Let's see if she sticks by him through this tough time." Durk and India's relationship, which began in 2017, has weathered its share of challenges, including a public breakup in 2022. Yet through the highs and lows, India has remained an integral part of his life. Her courthouse appearance suggests she's standing by him once again.